I genuinely think that seriousness is a disease. We have somehow convinced ourselves that the more serious we look, the more productive we must be. We have literally created this image in our heads that successful people are always serious. They're always stressed, always thinking, always planning, always worried about something. And if you are smiling too much and if you're laughing too much, then clearly you're not working as hard as you should. But really, who came up with this rule? Because if you actually stop and observe life, your own life, I don't think seriousness has ever helped you as much as you think it has. Think about it for a second, right? What exactly changes when you become more serious? Do you suddenly unlock some hidden potential or productivity model? Does your brain suddenly go, oh wow, she's so serious, let me increase her IQ by 20 points? Do you magically start putting in extra hours? Do you become more disciplined overnight? I don't think so. That does not happen. You still have those exact same 24 hours to deal with. You still have the same body, you still have the same amount of work that needs to be done. The only thing that really changes is that you have somehow removed the joy from the process. I mean, you're still writing the same report, you're still editing the same video, you're still building the same business, except now you have decided to do it with a permanent frown on your face, as if the universe is going to hand you some bonus points for looking miserable. And I think that this is where we have been fooled. We have mistaken seriousness for commitment. I mean, those are not the same things. Commitment means showing up every day, whether you feel like it or not. Commitment means getting the work done even when motivation disappears. And seriousness is just the emotional costume you are wearing while doing the work. I mean, you can seriously be deeply committed and still enjoy yourself. You can be incredibly disciplined and still laugh at some stupid jokes. You can still build a multi-dollar company and still dance while making your morning coffee. Those two things do not cancel each other out. It is actually funny when you think about it, right? Imagine there's you and your friend, and you both starting the same exact business. You both have invested the same amount of money, you both have the same skills, same experiences, same numbers of hours in a day. However, now your friend wakes up in the morning and thinks, if this business does not work out, my life is over. What if nobody buys? What if people judge me? What if I fail? What if I've wasted my time? By 10 in the morning, your friend has already mentally attended their whole funeral. Then there is you, who's equally serious about their goals, but not as a personality. Now you wake up, you make your breakfast, you put on some music, sit down and work. You solve the same problems when they arise, you make the same mistakes, you fix it in your own way, and then you move on. You also care about your business, but that business is not your entire identity. And now tell me honestly, who is putting in more work? Neither. You both are probably working the same number of hours, sending the same emails, attending the same meetings, and facing the same kind of problems. The only difference is that one of you all has decided to carry 100 kilos of emotional weight while doing the exact same job, and it is like they're wearing a bag full of bricks during a marathon and then wondering why running feels so difficult. And now there's something really interesting that psychology also tells us, which is that our brain performs the best when it is challenged, not when it is threatened. There's a huge difference between now these two things. The difference between those two things is that when your brain feels constantly threatened, whether it is by some actual danger or by some thought like, if I don't do this, if this does not work out, I am finished, my life is done. What it does is it starts to prioritize survival over creativity. And that is when you overthink your decisions and you struggle to come up with any new or creative ideas. Because now your brain is not even trying to be creative anymore, it is just trying to protect you. On the other hand, when you are relaxed and you're genuinely engaged, what you're doing is it is much more easier for you to enter in a state called flow state. This is the state wherein the athletes perform their best, artists lose their track of time. Writers end up writing 10 pages without even realizing it. Musicians completely disappear into music. None of that comes from seriousness. It comes from being fully present. And I think that is exactly what seriousness steals from us. It steals presence. When you are serious, you are rarely enjoying what you're doing. You're constantly thinking about what will happen next. You're constantly thinking about what will happen if it does not work out. You're just living in tomorrow's fear. That is why, even when something good happens, serious people struggle to enjoy that very thing because they have already moved on to the next thing to worry about. They hit one milestone and then suddenly they start to stress over what is the next thing. They finally launched the business and now they're worried about sales. Sales come in, now they're worried about expansion. Then they expand and now they're worried about competition. Their life becomes this endless loop of what ifs. There is never a moment when they actually sit back and go, you know what? That is pretty cool. Now, this is where I think seriousness becomes dangerous because seriousness almost always comes with attachment. Now, these two things are like best friends. You'll rarely find someone who's extremely serious about something but is not emotionally attached to the outcome. The moment you become serious, you unknowingly start to put that thing that you're chasing on a pedestal. It simply stops becoming something you are excited to create and starts becoming something you desperately need. Now, now listen to me very carefully, okay? There is a huge difference between these two energies. One says that I would absolutely love for this to happen. The other one says that if this does not happen, I don't know what I will do. On the surface, both the people are working equally hard, but internally they're living in completely different worlds. I mean, people just hear the word detachment and immediately think that it means not caring. That is not what detachment is. Detachment does not mean sitting on your sofa, eating chips, and telling the universe, you figure it out. You figure it out, whatever it is that I want. That's not a manifestation. That's procrastination, my love. With better branding. Because detachment simply means that your emotional well being is not held hostage by one outcome. I'll say it again. Detachment simply means that your emotional well being is not held hostage by one particular outcome. I mean, you still care, you definitely do, you still put in the work, you still give your best, and honestly, you have probably experienced this in your own life without even realizing it. Have you ever lost something really small, like your pen, your earphones, maybe your car keys, maybe your goggles? You checked the same drawer 3 times, even though you know you've already checked it. Then you start getting irritated. And after 20 minutes, you finally go, you know what? I don't care. Forget about it. If I find it, if I find it, if I don't, I don't. I'll deal with it. Then somehow, 10 minutes later, it's just there in front of you, sitting in the most obvious place as if it had been laughing at you the entire time. Now, am I saying that universe teleported your charger or the thing that you were looking for? No. What probably happened is that the moment you relaxed, your brain relaxed too. Psychology actually supports this idea. When you are stressed, your attention becomes very narrow because now your brain is entirely focused on solving the immediate problem. However, however, letting go often allows you to see the possibilities that panic was hiding from you. That's why I like imagining attachment as a brick. Now imagine that you are carrying your goal in your hand and the goal itself is not heavy. It's not heavy. The work is not the heavy part either. Now imagine that you place a huge brick on top of your goal, right? Now this is the brick that you've placed on your goal. Now this brick is made up of your emotionally charged thoughts. Like, this has to happen. If this does not happen, I'm done for life. I'm finished. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I'm not enough? And now suddenly this goal, which was literally weightless, becomes 10 times heavier. Nothing about the work has changed. The only thing that really changed was how you were mentally attached to it, and now it is like it is getting very heavy. See? And now look, the other person who's carrying the same goal, but there is no break. They're still walking, they're still making the same progress, they're still getting tired sometimes because, let's be honest, chasing dreams is hard. But they are not carrying any unnecessary weight, they're just simply carrying their goal. They've removed any sort of emotional baggage that was never helping them in the first place. And now tell me, which process is easy? The one wherein you've put in your attachment, and the one where there is no weight. And this is also why I think that seriousness delays manifestation. Not because the universe is sitting there with a clipboard saying, oh, she's serious. Application rejected. This is not what I mean. I think that seriousness creates attachment creates resistance, and resistance makes you less open. We stop seeing opportunities simply because we are too busy staring at just one path. We have decided that our dream has to take place. We become so obsessed with plan A that we reject plan B, C, D, even when they might actually lead us somewhere better. I mean, you must have noticed how life almost never unfolds exactly the way you've planned. You think that you're going to meet the love of your life in a certain place while you end up meeting them somewhere completely different you hadn't even imagined. You think that one job is going to change your whole life. It is actually that conversation you had while waiting for an interview that became your biggest toe. You think that if that one project failed, you think that if I failed that one project, my life is done for, only to realize it months later that it redirected you towards meeting something better. Life has this strange habit of refusing to follow our own script. I mean, life has this strange habit of refusing to follow our script. And maybe that's because our script is very limited by what we can currently imagine because we can only plan using the information that we have today. Life or the universe, if that's the language you prefer, has access to infinity more variables than we do. That's why I think that it is perfectly okay to have a destination in your head without becoming obsessed with the route. Have the goal, absolutely have the goal, have the biggest goal possible. Know what you want, work towards it every single day, but not become so rigid that you believe that it can come to life through this one specific door. Sometimes the best opportunities are exactly the ones that you never even planned in the first place. And this is exactly why I keep coming back to the same idea that seriousness does not make you work harder, it simply just makes your journey heavier. The work is still yours to do, but the emotional weight that you're carrying is completely optional. And with that, I will see you in the next video.